You've been asking for it, and we're finally gonna do it. We're gonna get this green thing to control that green thing despite just about everything getting in my way. And what this bright green box is a Fardriver ND72300 controller. And if you've watched my videos in the past, then you've seen this thing in another bike of mine, my Mototec 48V Pro. And when I had this in the 48V Pro, it worked pretty well. Kind of. We'll see whether or not those particular issues crop up when it comes to putting it in this bike. Now, despite some of the issues I had after the fact, the installation on the 48V was pretty easy. The frame of this bike lends itself well to swapping controllers because it's basically a direct fit and still plenty of space for everything else to go with it. The wiring, the battery leads, so much room for activities. But today we're attempting to put this in the 60V, and that is a whole other story. Let me peel back the onion here a little bit and show you exactly what I mean. So I've been poking around this bike for a little bit, a lot actually, and no matter what I can think of, I can't find any way to get this thing to cooperate and fit anywhere inside this bike. So first thought, can it slide right here underneath the frame and on top of the battery? Nope, it's too thick. Well, what about up against the side here? Not quite. I mean, I could remove this little rubber piece and look, it fits. Only problem though, that is where the battery needs to be connected. I can't exactly fit some wires in there. Or maybe I fit it like this, except now it's in the way of this. I can't exactly turn left. See that? Don't want that to happen. Then maybe in this little trapezoidal thing here? Yeah, no, that's never gonna fit. Not to mention that this is where the wiring harness comes out, and if it's fitting in there, if it ever did, then where the heck is that wire gonna go? As a final and kind of desperate last resort, I thought maybe somewhere under the seat here, there seems to be some decent amount of space and a nice frame that it can connect to. Nope. It is way too wide. So all this leads me to believe that unfortunately this is probably a no-go. And I know what you're thinking right now. The easiest solution would just be to simply cut this piece of the frame and then you have all the room in the world. But I don't want to do that. Reason being is that I don't want to impact the structural integrity of this frame. I want to keep things as stock as possible, so if I want to, I can go back pretty easily, and most importantly, I don't know how to weld. However, while this box can't go in the bike, it can certainly go on it. Now this is most definitely not staying this way. This is just for proof of concept because I did some digging and found that there are some other Fardrivers that are smaller than this but not as powerful. So if I can get this one set up in particular and then have everything work and then set it to the same parameters as the smaller one, then I'll get the smaller one. All that's left now is just wiring and a few other things, and if you're wiring this for the first time and looking at this, then it looks pretty intimidating, I know, but trust me, this is actually not that bad. Now, I would show you all the stuff that I did specifically with this wiring harness, but honestly, I would actually refer you to another YouTuber on here that has a very good video. I referenced this myself when I was doing it for the first time. Check out EMX Brandon. He does a very, very good job, complete how-to in plugging in a Fardriver specifically with a Mototec, and even though he did it with the 48V, a lot of that will still apply to the 60V. I will link his video in the description below if you want to see the details on that. At the same time, I'm going to be replacing this stupid half throttle because I absolutely hate it. Everyone seems to hate it, so I'm going to be replacing it and adding in something that's a little bit more legitimate, an actual Sur-on throttle. Now, all this does change a few things to the wiring harness that I had originally when I was putting this in the 48V. So when I originally did all of this for the 48V, I had this unit right here, which is kind of a 3-in-1. So not only is it a full twist throttle, but it's also the voltmeter and it's also the switched key power. And because of that, this one had a total of 5 wires going out of it. However, now with this setup, all those 3 things are split into their own unique pieces. I have the Sur-on throttle here. I have a voltage display, which I found on Amazon that I really like, link in the description. And finally, we have the wires split out for the key. So where I used to have one plug that was 5 wires, now I have 3 different plugs with a total of 7 wires. First thing is the throttle right here. So these are the 3 wires for the throttle, and there's a black, green, and red for the Fardriver, which correspond to black, blue, and brown for the Sur-on. So that was 3 of the 5 original, but then the other 2 were switched power and full power from the battery, which would be these 2 right here, a red and an orange for the key. But at the same time, now I need to also power a separate voltage display, and this one requires switched power and ground. So I spliced from both of these. I spliced a black wire from this black wire here, and I spliced an orange from this switched power here to get this little pigtail, and this connects to my new voltage display. But besides all of that complicated mess right here, everything else is very straightforward. So we have another 5-pin right here for the hall sensor, and these are 5 distinct colors right here that line up exactly with the 5 different colors wires coming out of the motor. Down here we have the original plug with the Bluetooth dongle that comes with the Fardriver wiring harness. And finally, I have the speed sensors right here because I like to keep the speed modes at the very least so that I can turn it down if I want to. So these 3 wires here come out and correspond to these 3 wires from the stock little dial right here that gives you low, middle, and high speed. Now we got everything all buttoned up, all the wires connected, and doesn't it just look absolutely gorgeous? Again, this is only temporary. I just want to see if this thing works in a proof of concept, and if it does work, then I will find something smaller or find a different place for this to go. But now it's the moment of truth. We have everything plugged in, so I got my phone here with the Fardriver app. If you have Android, by the way, it's in the description where you can find that. It's not on the Play Store. And let's turn it on and see what happens. So we got it connected on the phone, and as you can hear, it is beeping at me a lot, and that's because when I originally programmed this thing before, this was for a 48-volt battery, and it thinks it's now still a 48-volt battery, and so it's freaking out because it's overvolted. All that to say, I just need to go into the settings here and change the rated voltage from 48 to 60. Also, since this is a brand new motor, I want to do the auto learn over again. Another sequence of beeps, and I'm glossing over all of this stuff, but check out my other video that I did with the 48-volt. It goes a little bit more in depth of what I'm actually doing here. It works. Let's put the seat back on, get in on the street. Let's kick it off with the top speed run. Whoa. That's some punch. Wow, no tuning, nothing. 38 miles an hour. Previously, this was 33 fully stock. You know what else I'm noticing right off the bat? There's no stumble on this bike. There was a stumble. Very, very frustrating stumble on the 48 volt, but this one feels so good. So everything works, and it works really well. With a few more tweaks to this tune, this thing's gonna be rocking, even with just the stock battery. But then I did some testing with the Fardriver, tuned down to what I would be getting with the smaller version if I were to get that, and the results were not very impressive. All right, so I have the bike tuned down as if I had the smaller Fardriver to the maximum of that, which is 50 line current, 100 phase, or maybe the other way around. Low end, 50 amps, high end, 100 amps. Let's see how fast we go and how it feels. It's a very slow start. It does kick back up. And survey says 32. It's not very good. That was a huge bummer, because then why go through all the effort of adding a Fardriver if the Fardriver that I'm able to fit into the bike is not even going to be an improvement from the stock stuff? So knowing all of that, I went back to the drawing board and ignored everything I said previously. Yep, screw it. Who needs structural integrity anyway? Let's just cut out that piece of frame. But it wasn't a total hack job. I ground off all the leftover welds flush and repainted so at least it looks stock. And I've ridden this bike around a little bit and bounced on it a few times, and I think it's still pretty rigid. Plus, this is the Supermoto we're talking about. I'm not gonna be taking this out on any rough trails or off of any kind of jumps. It's gonna be just fine. But I'm sure you wanna see how I do this, so let's see what it looks like without the plastics here. And as you can see, I kind of modeled this similar to how it's set up in the 48 volt with this thing upside down up against the frame. And I secured it in place with a couple of homemade brackets here. This is really thin aluminum bar. You can get this at Home Depot for like $3, and I literally just bent it over the frame so that it mounts on 4 ends right here, and it's as flush as possible so the heatsink is right up against the frame. And it's a really good thing that this Fardriver controller isn't any longer or any wider, because if it was, this would definitely not fit even with the hack job that I took to the frame. So you can see where it's positioned right now. It is right up against the key in the very front. And if we make our way down here, you can see it is just barely on top of the battery, and there is a little bit of a clearance. It's actually not sitting on the battery case, but just enough that like maybe I could fit a piece of paper under there, but that's about it. But in addition to all of that, we can make our way up top and take a look at our brand new controls, starting with our brand new Sur-On throttle, full twist throttle, which is excellent, and it's wrapped in some pillow tops from Pro Taper. Actually, not from Pro Taper. These are Chinese knockoffs. I found them for like $7. And finally, we have our voltage display right here, right next to the key. Now, this bracket actually came with the voltage meter, which worked out perfectly. I'm able to use the existing hole there, so it actually goes right into the front of the plastics right there, and it looks really nice and clean. And I really like the look of this. Only thing left to do at this point really is just some cable management, because as you can see here, it's all kind of just tucked up. The only annoying thing with this frame is that it's not fully enclosed, the battery and the controller, so I can't just hide this behind plastic panels like I could with the 48 volt. This, I actually have to do some cleanup, because otherwise it just looks like a tangle of wires underneath the shroud. So now we got this set up basically to its full potential, or at least what I had with the 48 volt. So the amperage is up both line and phase current. Whoa! Okay, that's a lot more get up and go. Listen to that, you can hear how much faster it's going. Wow, and before you know it, I'm at the end of the road. Holy cow. I don't even need to see the number, I know that's faster. But what did it actually get to? 40. Not bad. Despite all that speed and acceleration, I can still do some slow speed stuff here with just little inputs on the throttle. So much more controlled than what I would have with all the stock components. Whee! Look at that thing go! As I go through the throttle and all the different speeds, it's very smooth, and I'm not getting that crunchy feeling at a certain RPM that I had previously with the 48 volt. So that actually debunks what I thought originally, that it was this controller that was the issue. So it was actually the bike itself. The tune is basically the exact same, so it's not in the tuning, but maybe it was the 48 volt motor, that 1600 watt motor. It just wasn't jiving with it. But it likes this 2000 watt motor just fine. See, if this Fardriver worked from the get-go in the 48 volt, I probably would not have found or tried to find the Electro & Co. ETM kit. I would argue that this feels just as smooth, just as powerful as the ETM kit, and at a fraction of the cost. This controller alone really transforms the bike, and that's just with a basic tune. With a few more tweaks and things, you can really squeeze a lot more horsepower out of this. Now, you can take a look at my specific tune as it sits right now if you're so inclined. I might make some changes here and there, but overall, it is a huge improvement. But you know what else is an improvement? More voltage.
God damn it! Another ending to tease us? Just give us what we want. I guess you'll just have to subscribe and follow along.